Hey, what's up, everybody? My name's Steve. I'm a principal engineer in Big Tech, Linux enthusiast, and this is Linux, by the way. Today, we're going to install Arch Linux on the Beelink SER8 Mini PC, which comes in a few variations. I went ahead and configured mine with the AMD Ryzen 7 series processor, which is the 8745HS. That's a Zen 4 model, so it's been out a little while, but performance-wise, it's still top-notch, and driver-wise, it has great Linux support. It has 8 cores, 16 threads. It boosts to 4.9 gigahertz, and it has a TDP of 65 watts. I also got 32 gigabytes of DDR5 memory, which runs at 5600 megahertz, and a terabyte of storage, which has PCIe 4.0 support. It also comes with the integrated Radeon graphics, the 780M, which can support triple monitors, 4K, high refresh rates, and is more than enough for my day-to-day development workflow. In terms of networking, it supports both Wi-Fi 6 and it has a 2.5 gigabit port. I'm using it hardwired this time, so no Wi-Fi involved in this install. We're also not just installing Arch Linux today, we're also going to take a look at Omarchy, which just came out last week from DHH. DHH, or David Heinemeier Hansson, is famous for creating Ruby on Rails, and he was also a longtime Apple user, but recently switched to Linux. He assembled a custom setup script that basically installs everything you want out of the box to look great, has amazing aesthetics, cool fonts, themes, kind of everything you need just packed right in there in an easy-to-use setup, and has developed a huge community online. And I recommend you check that out. There's also a Discord you can join, and I'll put that in the link below. I'm going to switch my workflow entirely to this PC for the next month, and that will include video editing and playing games and development. And we'll see if I can do it all on a $500 PC. Right now, I think I can, and we'll have to test it out and see if that works out. Let's go ahead and get started. So a few years back, I made a video called How to Install Arch Linux in 15 Minutes, and that's still totally valid today. The fundamentals haven't changed. But since then, there's been a new tool called Arch Install. Arch Install simplifies the whole process, and what it lets us do is not have to type everything in like en_us.utf8, etc. It configures same defaults and just lets us sort of breeze through the install. I'm also using the Omarchy manual, and so the Omarchy manual is going to guide us through this, and we're going to do a very minimal install, and we'll let Omarchy take on the rest. So the first thing we need to do is head over to the Arch Linux website, download the ISO, and burn it on a USB key. To burn it to the USB key, we're going to go ahead and download the Balena Etcher tool, and that allows us to write the image to the USB key and make it bootable. I went ahead and used my Samsung 128 gig key. You can see I get good use out of this, and it's never failed me. I put a link below on Amazon for that also. And if you like these sort of videos, please go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel out. I appreciate it. Once you burn the USB key, we're ready to boot up. So I have this in the Beelink. You might have it in a different PC, whatever. My BIOS key is F7 to pick one. Yours might be different. This varies a lot. It could be F8, it could be delete, it could be F11 or F12. But on the Beelink, F7, easy enough. We'll jam that, and then we'll go ahead and boot into this USB key. And so we're booted into Arch Linux successfully, and you can see everything's working. If you want, you can check it out. You can type like top or something, and you can see, okay, there's our 16 threads. We have our 32 gigs of memory. In this case, you will see a lower amount of memory, and that's because we have the integrated graphics, which takes some of it. And so we really only have, in practice, 27,829 megabytes of memory, but that's not a big deal. That should be just fine. For this desktop, I'm hardwired, so I just go straight to the network, no Wi-Fi involved. If you have Wi-Fi, we're going to use IWCTL. So you can go ahead and type IWCTL, and then from here, what you're going to want to do is just type station WLAN 0 scan, and what that will do is it will scan all the networks. This works on the Beelink because I also have Wi-Fi 6 in there. So if I want to switch to Wi-Fi, no problem, it just works. And then from here, what you're going to do is just type station WLAN 0 connect, and then your SSID. So don't type SSID, that won't work, but type your cool name like Dragon Lord or whatever it is you have at home. And to test your network connectivity, you can just run a ping 8.8.8.8. Mine is usually between 10 to 13 milliseconds. If you're on Starlink or something, it might be 50. I have Xfinity, which I don't like, but it's usually around 10 to 13, and this is looking even a little better than normal. So once we have this booted up, the next step is to run Arch install. So let's go ahead and type that, and it's going to boot up and check the package repo and update everything. And then we're going to be good to start configuring it. There is Windows on the Beelink model I got, but I don't trust it. You probably shouldn't either. So we're going to delete the whole drive. I'm not going to trust any sort of pre-installed software off like random manufacturer on Amazon, but we don't care. We're going to reset the whole system to our liking. So the first thing we do is set up your language. I'm doing English. If you're watching this, you're listening in English, leave that one. And then we're going to go mirrors and repositories, select regions, and that's going to go ahead and load the regions. And in my case, I'm just going to go all the way down to the bottom, select United States. Now we can go ahead and set the disk configuration. So we'll select this, select partitioning, and it says use best effort. And so we'll select that, and we will select not the flash drive. So You could install Arch on your flash drive. In this case, we're booted up off of it, so I might have a second one if you really wanted to do that. But we're just going to overwrite the internal drive, which is a terabyte. You can see if it looks like this, stop for a second and make sure you're picking the right drive, because maybe your system isn't like a brand new system or something, and maybe there's things you care about there. You can see that this partition layout is a Microsoft Windows layout. Maybe you have an existing install, maybe you want that stuff. I don't care, so I'm going to delete it all. You might care. Think about it before you click anything. And so we'll go ahead and select that. The guide says use BTRFS. I actually am just going to use ext4. I trust it more. And I do have a lot of like media files and stuff like that, and it's always worked for that. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that. BTRFS is more cutting edge. There have been bugs before, but it's used at places like Meta and stuff now. It's very reliable, but ext is like super reliable. And then XFS is also another good one. And I use that on servers a lot. We'll say yes to making the home partition. And then from here, what we can do is make sure to go to disk encryption. And we're going to change this and say Lux and set our encryption password. And the reason we want to use disk encryption and always set it up that way is because eventually you're going to give this PC away. You're going to sell it, something like that. And you don't want your personal data on there, which is very easy to recover. Like if you format something, your data is mostly all still there. And so disk encryption means that when we format it and get rid of the encryption keys, it's going to use bank grade encryption so that all of your pictures and maybe your password vaults and all that, they won't just be given to the next person. And if they run a recovery tool, they might get all that stuff. So you have to think about that if you're going to want to sell this down the road or give it to somebody or give it to a kid later on as you upgrade. It's a good thing to do every single time. The next thing we're going to do is set up our host name. You can pick anything here. I do recommend you pick one that isn't already in use on your network. Only you know that. I don't know that. In this case, I'm going to call this Arch Mini because I'm using the Beelink Mini PC, and that shouldn't be taken yet, hopefully. Let's go ahead and set up our root password here. Make this relatively strong, something you can remember. And then we'll go ahead and add a normal user because only monsters run as root all the time. So say add a user. In this case, I'll use my name, put my password in, and we'll say, yes, it should be a super user, confirm and exit there. We're going to select audio and select Pipewire. And Pipewire is a way to manage our devices that's very modern. There's a whole evolution of Linux audio that's occurred over the years, and Pipewire is the newest and best. So you may have heard of things like ALSA and then Pulse Audio, and then Pipewire is at the top now in terms of what we want to use. For network configuration, we're just going to select copy ISO network installation. For additional packages, we're just going to do / and type wget, and we're going to select that. And the reason we need that is that's the only tool we need to download Omarchy, which will finish configuring a system for us. And let's go ahead and configure a time zone. I'm going to select the mountain. Make sure you select yours and remember the world's mountain time. So good luck. So we hit install and it says this is the configuration, and we'll say yes to that. And then it's going to go ahead and erase everything in the drive. And hopefully when it's done, we will have a fully working Arch Linux install. Right now, while we're waiting, the installer is also doing some cool stuff. So it synced our time and is checking the mirrors to see which one's faster so that we'll have the fastest install. Which is just a nice sort of quality of life feature instead of having to pick it by hand. So there we go. Now it's downloading all the packages. You can see it's going pretty fast. And my Arch Linux in 15-minute video, I actually ran a local mirror here. And if you run a local mirror, you can finish this whole install, like if you're really good at it, in like 4 minutes or something. It's super fast. So if you're installing Linux all the time, definitely worth it. But otherwise, this is still pretty quick, as you can see. I think if I used a local mirror all the time, my YouTube videos would be too short. You can see as it's going through too, it enabled FS trim. So FS trim will make sure that we periodically discard the blocks on our SSD to keep that healthy. And so some people forget that when they're doing the install by hand. This is covering a lot of bases for us with just really common sense stuff. Well, this is going. In terms of the Beelink Mini PC, I don't hear any fans or anything. So that's pretty cool. So this is not really stressing it out or really pushing it to its limits. The cooling system is able to keep it cool while installing Arch Linux. And I just don't hear anything at all right now. So there we go. We're all finished. That took maybe 9 minutes total. And that was me running through the whole installer and picking all the options and repeating things that I missaid, etc., and then installing. So in reality, you can get this done really quick. So let's go ahead and do the reboot and see what happens. I'm not sure if you could even see that on YouTube because it was so fast, but I booted into it and now we're already at a login prompt. And that's partially because this is a very minimal system. So we don't have a GUI install, or it's not really starting up a lot of daemons. It's just like purely straight to log in. And we're going to fix all that in a second by doing Omarchy. So let's go ahead and log in with our account. And again, we're not going to log in as root. We're going to log in as our user account. And you can see here, it's all the settings that I had. So We're at Arch Mini. The first thing we're going to do after rebooting is make sure to check your networking again. So we picked a copy over the network configuration, and it should be already set up for you. If it's not, you have to go through the steps one more time. In this case, we're on the network and we're good to go. And so with that out of the way, now we can use Omarchy. So let's go ahead and type wget-qo-https://omarchy.org/install. And that should get us a big bash script. And so you can see here, it's going to eval that. And you're going to want to review anything that you wget and install. I've already reviewed this script and it looked good to me, but whenever you're running a wget into your bash, it could take over your system. So keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and pipe that in. And now we get this cool logo, and we're going to go ahead and go to sudo. This is going to install the whole Omarchy setup for us automatically, which is a custom built version of Linux that's configured by DHH and others to be super aesthetic. It uses Hyperland, so we're going to get into that. It has Ghosty as a terminal option, lots of themes involved, and sort of everything in the kitchen sink in there, so you don't need to get a bunch of packages later. It's going to have it all right there. You can see it's also installing Yay. And so Yay is a way to interact with the Arch user repository. And the Arch user repository has all the packages that don't come in the core Arch. So things like DaVinci Resolve and stuff, users will actually put packages together. And you're going to find a lot of things in there that you want, like nerd fonts or maybe IntelliJ, things like that. They're all in the user repository, and they work the best out of any Linux. This is also geared at developers. So we're going to go ahead and enter our username here for Git. And we're going to put in our email. And this is just setting up our git config. There's a git config globals file there. And so now we did that, and so I can interact with GitHub or whatever I want to do in terms of software. The Omarchy script also installed Bluetooth, so I'll have that available if I have any devices or wireless headphones, etc. And that appears to just work with the SCR8 that I have. As we go through here, you see things like brightness control and FFmpeg and all the various tools we'd need to install one by one. This script is going to do it all, installs 1Password, and it's a very prescriptive way of installing everything. It's all the things that he likes in one place so that you can just bootstrap a new desktop like that. Because this is developer focused, it also installs things like Lazy Docker. And if you've ever used something like LazyGit, it's a TUI that integrates really well into NeoVim and lets you navigate Git. Well, that's the same thing for Docker. And so that way we can just instantly navigate our Docker and not necessarily have to type in a bunch of commands to get that full view of it. Out of the box, it also installs cups. So you should have printer support too. He's really put everything into this so that you don't have to worry about it. Normally, these are things where later on I go, I want to print, and then I have to go look at the Arch Wiki real quick. In this case, we have it all. It's also using Mize here to compile, and that is using all my threads. So you can see there it says make-j16, which means use all 16 threads on it. And I can finally hear the fans a little bit. And so it's definitely using that and going at 100%. We can also hit Control-Alt-F2 and log in here. And we can watch that by hitting top. And so if we hit top and hit the number 1 key, you can see here now there's a Ruby script running at 97%. And then I can go back and forth by doing Control-Alt-F1 and Control-Alt-F2. So if you're like, what's going on in my system? What's running right now? I like to do this to see it. And sometimes if it's compiling, you'll actually see them go all at 100%. We're even getting Zoom out of the box. So if you need to collaborate with your colleagues or submit a TPS report, it's all right there. I see other tools also packaged in here. So I just saw Obsidian go by. I saw Signal Messenger, I saw Spotify, and I saw Pinta, which is for editing graphics. It's like a simplified GNOME or an easier to use one, which is nice. You can see here when you're compiling that you're going to see all the processors start to get used, and there'll be some single-threaded and some multi-threaded. So like usually the linker stage is single-threaded on things like Rust for sure. And then you'll see when it's actually compiling, it will split that out across all the threads and make the full use of the Ryzen 7 in this. And with that, we are installed. So we're going to reboot and see what happens. And now we're officially booted into Omarchy. So you may be wondering, how do I launch programs? I have all this stuff here and it looks cool, but it doesn't do anything. And we're going to use the keyboard to navigate. So using the keyboard increases speed and efficiency, and it's way better than like moving your mouse around and trying to figure out where things are. And so we're going to go ahead and hit the Windows key, or also known as super key, and we're going to do space, and that will make our launcher go. And so in this case, it's called Wofi. And so we'll hit super space, and this is going to give us a list of our programs here. And so I'm going to go ahead and launch Chromium, and we'll do that. And now you can see that it's already pre-configured with Hyperland. So we have like these subtle borders on the outside, and then there's the outline there. And let's say like I want to launch a terminal or something, I can hit super enter here. And so now I have one with the terminal, and I can go back and forth by holding the super key. and then doing left and right, for example. I can change the sizes by hitting super plus or minus. So you can see here, if I want to change or adjust these, I just do that. If we wanted to swap these vertically, just do super J, and that will move them so that we can go up and down instead of left and right. And we can hit super J again, and that puts it right back where it was. So we can make a customized layout for whatever activity we're doing. And so maybe web browsing is one set of layouts, programming is another set of layouts, media creation is another set of layouts. This supports them all in one place. We can do things like hit Super T, and that will launch our activity monitor. And so you can see we're really not doing a lot right now. We just have Hyperland and Alacrity and Chromium sitting there doing nothing. While we're doing this, though, we can go to Google and then do a speedometer test on this one. So let's go ahead and look at speedometer 3.1, and we'll pick that and click Start Test. And while this is going, you can see that most of the threads are unused. So this test is very single-threaded. It's not using all 16. It's just going on one core basically. And that one core, it says, 7.6%. And that's how much CPU it's using overall. 27.1 is a really solid score in this. Some MacBooks score higher, but also this benchmark is not really representative of what you'll be doing with your PC. You're going to have a lot of tabs, a lot of threads open, and they're going to use things in different ways, like say YouTube. You're actually going to use your video hardware to decode those videos, which is a little different than this. Let's go ahead and also do a Super F here. And Super F will open the file manager. So just like you're used to with Windows Explorer, I have my USB key here still plugged in, and then I have all my folders, and you can navigate things just as you would in any other system, only it's at the tip of your fingers. So just hit the super, boom, open the file, done. And then we can do a Control W, exit that out. Control W works mostly everywhere. So if you're in the File Explorer or you're in a tab or anything like that, Control W exits that out. And also if you're in a terminal, Control D. So if you want to exit and input in a terminal or exit a terminal itself, you just hit Control D, and that means I'm done with my session. The other thing we can do with the tiling window manager is we can move things around. So if I do Super Shift 2, I've actually moved that to a different workspace. So I'm going to do Super 1, Super 2, Super 1, Super 2. And this is key for workflows. So when you see people online, they're like, hey, I'm on Reddit and I have 35 monitors and you can't possibly do what I do. Well, a lot of us only use one main monitor, but the only way you can do that is by having something like this, because if you try it on Mac OS, there are alternatives like Aerospace and stuff, but they're not as good. But you need that zero transition delay. And so if you think about a multiple monitor workflow, what you're going to be looking at is that I have this screen. I'm looking at the screen. I need docs, look over here. I need this screen, look over here. I need docs, look over here. And it's a little questionable ergonomically, but it's also questionable from an efficiency standpoint. And so with Hyperland, I can put those windows side by side if I need them, right? So if you're cut and pasting between them, you can put them side by side. But you can also put them in just different workspaces. So now it's like, okay, what am I doing here? I'm running this test. Oh, cool. Let me check what the status is. Oh, yep, we're at 0% CPU. Fine. Go right back. And I can instantly do that. And so if you put consistently these same programs in the same workspaces, you'll get this muscle memory where you can go, oh, okay, I can check my email instantly. I can check my Discord instantly. I can check my system instantly. I can check my editor instantly, et cetera. And that's way more efficient than having to hunt around on monitors and drag things around. And that's why developers love this. There's also a built-in theme switcher. So if you do Super, Control, Shift, and Space, you can cycle through them. And so you can see here, we have Forest and Capuchin, and I'll just keep doing this, Grovebox, all sorts of different themes, which are sort of like handpicked. They all look really nice. Even the background changes along with it. So really cool. So you can just kind of change the whole thing. And so now I'm in Nord mode, and you can see the differences there. Really nice. There's also other pre-made shortcuts like Super N. So that just launches a straight into NeoVim. And you can see he uses LazyVim. I made a video on that also. LazyVim is the best. I love it. It's easy to set up. I put it on all my systems, and it only takes me a couple minutes, and it just works fantastic. And so here we go. And you can see as we do this actually that the fonts are all configured and everything else too. And so that's exactly what we want. And so I'll just do Super N again now that's installed. And you can see I already have my fuzzy finder. It loads super quick. I can see everything. In this case, there is a Go directory with OTel and a bunch of stuff already, which I didn't even know was there. So you can see all that, syntax highlighting, good to go. And then we can do all the normal LazyVim stuff. So we can hit X here, go to extras, enable all the plugins we need. And that's super fast, responsive, nice. And if I want, I just throw that in my Vim panel. So now my workspace too, always Vim. And again, that's that workflow piece, right? So now when I'm working on a project, like maybe number one is always my web browser. And my number 2 is always Vim. And I just go back and forth like instantaneously. And I don't even know if that goes in the video because this video is at like 29.97 frames per second. And this is a very fast animation. So as you can see, I'm swapping through them a little slower. Works great. So it's sort of a combined video for can I get a random $500 PC off Amazon and can I install Arch Linux and use Omarchy? So far, my verdict is absolutely yes. It's fast, it's responsive, it works really good. Everything is out of the box the way I like it. I'll probably make some follow-up videos on this as I use it and get my workflow tuned in, and I'll show you those too. But go ahead and let me know in the comments below. Can you do your whole workflow on a $500 mini PC running Arch Linux? I think I can, from development to gaming to video editing, and I'll report back soon. Let me know what you think. I'll talk to you in the next one.